The Great Hall of Axis Prime Station floated in the darkness of space between star systems. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered around a circular table that stretched nearly 100 meters across. Holographic displays flickered above each delegation, showing their homeworlds and symbols of power. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in the human section, his hands folded calmly on the smooth metal surface before him. He had served Earth for 30 years, and in that time, he had learned to read the mood of any room. Today, the mood was hostile. The Valdran delegation occupied the largest section of the table. They were tall beings, nearly 3 meters high, with dark blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Their forearms moved with practiced grace as they gestured during conversation. The Valdran Empire had ruled significant portions of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They knew it, and they made sure everyone else knew it too. High Commander Thexalor stood to address the assembly. His voice boomed through translation devices that rendered his words in every language present. "We gather today to address a pressing concern," Thexalor began, his upper arms spread wide in a gesture of authority. "The matter of humanity's place within our concordate." Chen Wei felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face neutral. He had expected this. The signs had been there for months. "Since joining our alliance 20 years ago, the humans have contributed little of value," Thexalor continued. "Their technology is primitive. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are crude. They possess no unique resources or knowledge that benefit the greater community." Several species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Chitara, insectoid beings with compound eyes that reflected rainbow colors, clicked their mandibles in what Chen knew was disapproval. The Delphines, who required water-filled chambers to survive, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that suggested disagreement, but many others nodded. The Valdran had allies, species that had bent knee to their power long ago. "I propose," Thexalor said, his voice dripping with false kindness, "that humanity be granted protectorate status. Under this arrangement, they would be protected by superior civilizations, guided by those with wisdom, sheltered by those with strength." Chen Wei understood immediately. Protectorate status was a polite term for slavery. Protected species had no vote in the Concordat. They could not refuse orders from their patrons. They existed to serve. "In simple terms," Thexalor added, and now his voice carried undisguised contempt, "we would be doing these barely evolved apes a favor. They play with fire like children, pretending to be equals to species that mastered the stars when their ancestors still lived in caves." Laughter rippled through sections of the hall. Not from everyone, but from enough. Chen Wei requested permission to speak. The Arbiter, a neutral species called the Grey Wardens, granted it. He stood slowly, meeting Thexalor's eyes across the vast chamber. "The Valdran have made their opinion of humanity clear," Chen Wei said quietly. "I would ask the Concordat to remember that age does not always equal wisdom. Sometimes the old simply become set in their ways, unable to adapt, unable to see new possibilities." "You dare lecture us?" Thexalor's voice thundered. "Your entire civilization is younger than some Valdran individuals. You have been in space for mere centuries while we have ruled for 10,000 years. And in those 10,000 years," Chen Wei replied calmly, "has the Valdran Empire ever faced a true challenge? Or have you simply grown fat on the submission of others?" The chamber erupted in shocked voices. No one spoke to the Valdran this way. Thexalor's skin darkened to almost black with rage. "This proves my point. Humanity lacks the respect, the discipline, the basic courtesy required of civilized beings. They must be taught their place." The vote was called. Chen Wei watched the display as the numbers appeared. 34 species voted in favor of reducing humanity to protectorate status. 13 voted against. Earth had 6 months to comply with the decision or face economic sanctions and military blockades of all human worlds. The Chitara representative approached Chen after the session ended. Rixala was small, barely reaching Chen's chest, but her species was known for honor and directness. "This is wrong," Rixala said, her translator rendering her clicks and whistles into Mandarin Chinese for Chen's benefit. "The Valdran pushed too far. They have grown arrogant." "Thank you, Rixala," Chen said. "Please remember that Earth values its friends. In the days to come, we will remember who stood with us." "What will your people do?" she asked. Chen Wei smiled, and there was something cold in that expression. "We will do what humans have always done when someone tries to put a boot on our neck. We will remind them why that's a very bad idea. On the Valdran flagship, Thexilor celebrated with his officers. They drank fermented nectar from crystal containers and congratulated themselves on putting the upstart humans in their place. They will comply, Thexilor said confidently. They have no choice. Their fleet is tiny. Their weapons are outdated. If they resist, we will crush them in a matter of days. His second-in-command, a younger Valdran named Kethix, was not so certain. Commander, I have studied the humans. Their history is as concerning. They have fought each other constantly. Their entire evolutionary path has been shaped by conflict. Thexilor waved a dismissive hand. Fighting among primitives with primitive weapons. It means nothing. We have fought wars across hundreds of star systems. We have weapons that can crack planets. What do they have? Metal ships with chemical rockets? They have fusion drives now, Kethix said quietly. Which we gave them. Thexilor laughed. Everything they have, we allowed them to have. They are children playing dress-up in adult clothing. Back on Earth, in the capital city of New Geneva, President Amara Okafor sat in her office watching the transmission from Axis Prime. Her military council surrounded her. Admiral Sarah Volkov, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet. General Marcus Thompson, head of United Earth Marines. Director Liu Chen, commander of Earth Intelligence Agency. They think we're weak, Okafor said softly. Good, Director Liu replied. Let them think that. We've had 20 years to prepare for something like this, Admiral Volkov added. 20 years of studying every species in the Concordat, learning their tactics, finding their weaknesses. The Valdran weakness is their arrogance, General Thompson said. They haven't fought a real war in 1,000 years. Their victories come from intimidation, from overwhelming force against inferior opponents who surrender before the first shot is fired. President Okafor stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city sparkled in the evening light. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that their entire civilization had just been insulted and threatened. We will not bow, she said. We will not become servants to anyone. If they want to discipline us, they will learn a very painful lesson about humanity. She turned back to her council. Activate Protocol Cerberus. Begin full military mobilization. If the Valdran want to see what humans are truly capable of, we will show them. And the galaxy will never look at us the same way again, Admiral Volkov smiled. It was not a kind smile. They called us barely evolved apes. They're about to learn that humans didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being gentle. The message went out across all human colonies, from Mars to Titan, from Alpha Centauri to Tau Ceti. Humanity prepared for war. They had been mocked, belittled, and threatened with enslavement. The Valdran Empire was about to discover why that was a terrible mistake. Ambassador Chen Wei sent one final message before leaving Axis Prime Station. It was marked for delivery to Thexilor personally. It contained only 7 words. You've mistaken patience for weakness. Remember this. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliation at Axis Prime. Earth's response had been swift and clear. President Amara Okafor addressed both humanity and the watching galaxy from the steps of the United Earth Government building. Cameras from every human world broadcast her speech. More importantly, the transmission was sent to every species in the Concordat. The Valdran would hear this. Everyone would hear this. We have received the Concordat's decision regarding protectorate status. Okafor began, her voice steady and strong. We have considered it carefully. Our answer is simple and final. No. She paused, letting the word hang in the air. Humanity will not bow. We will not become servants. We will not surrender our freedom because others think themselves superior. We came to the stars seeking partnership and friendship. We found it with some species. But we also found arrogance and contempt. Behind her, the flags of every human colony rippled in the breeze. Mars, Titan, Europa, Ganymede, and the newer settlements beyond Sol system. To the Valdran Empire I say this clearly, Okafor continued. You have mistaken our peaceful nature for weakness. You have confused our diplomacy for cowardice. You think because you are old you are wise. You think because you have ruled for millennia you are invincible. You are wrong. On the Valdran homeworld of Valthorax, High Commander Thexilor watched the transmission with growing rage. His 4 fists clenched until his knuckles turned white. This is outrageous, he shouted. They dare defy the Concordat. They dare defy us? The Valdran High Council surrounded him. 12 of the oldest and most powerful Valdrin in the Empire. They had ruled for so long that they barely remembered what it felt like to be challenged. The humans must be taught respect, Council Elder Morthex said coldly. Send the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. Show them the price of defiance. 120 warships, Thexilor said with satisfaction. Against their pathetic defense force of what? 40 ships? This will be over in hours. Make an example of them, another council member added. But do not destroy them completely. Broken slaves are still useful. The 7th Expeditionary Fleet departed from Valthorax 3 days later. 120 ships, each massive and bristling with weapons. The Valdrin designed their vessels to intimidate as much as to fight. Each ship stretched over 2 kilometers long, covered in dark metal that absorbed light, making them look like holes in space itself. Fleet Commander Vexathor led the armada. He was a veteran of dozens of campaigns, though most had ended with surrender before battle. The Valdrin reputation usually did the fighting for them. Set course for the Sol system, Vexathor ordered. Maximum intimidation formation. I want the humans to see us coming and feel their hearts sink with despair. In the Sol system, alarms rang out across Earth's orbital defenses. Admiral Sarah Volkov stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, humanity's flagship. Around her, the crew worked with calm efficiency. They had drilled for this scenario 1,000 times. Valdrin fleet detected at Jump Point Alpha, the sensor officer reported. Confirming 120 contacts. They're not even trying to hide their approach. Of course not, Volkov said quietly. They want us to be afraid. Transmit our response. The message went out on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Volkov of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are entering human sovereign space. You have 3 minutes to reverse course or explain your intentions. The reply came quickly. Vexathor's face appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes gleaming with contempt. Admiral Volkov, I am Fleet Commander Vexathor. I carry the authority of the Valdrin Empire and the mandate of the Galactic Concordat. You have been ordered to accept protectorate status. Your refusal is illegal. You will stand down immediately and prepare to receive Valdrin administrators who will oversee your transition. Volkov stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Commander Vexathor, please relay this message to your superiors. Humanity does not recognize your authority. We do not accept your mandate. And we do not fear your ships. If you continue your approach, we will consider it an act of war. Choose wisely. Vexathor's skin darkened with anger. You have 40 ships. We have 120. Do you truly think you can resist us? I think, Volkov said slowly, that you're about to get a very expensive education. But please continue your approach. My crew hasn't had a proper test in months. The Valdrin fleet advanced. Behind Vexathor, his officers laughed at the human bravado. 40 ships against 120. It was suicide. The humans would surely surrender before the first shot was fired. They're bluffing, Vexathor's second officer said. No species would be foolish enough to fight against such odds. You haven't studied humans very well, the intelligence officer, a younger Valdrin, warned. Their history is full of them fighting impossible odds. Sometimes they even win. Silence, Vexathor snapped. They are primitives with delusions of adequacy. We will show them the error of their ways. On the Indomitable, Volkov gave quiet orders. Begin withdrawal protocol. Make it look panicked. I want them convinced we're running scared. The Earth Defense Fleet began to retreat deeper into the solar system. Their formation looked ragged, disorganized. Several ships broadcast emergency signals. It appeared exactly like a fleet that had suddenly realized it was hopelessly outmatched. They flee, Vexathor announced with satisfaction. As expected. Pursue them. We'll accept their surrender at Jupiter orbit. It's far enough from Earth to be humiliating. But the tactical officer frowned at his displays. Commander, they're heading towards Saturn. That's the wrong direction if they want to protect Earth. They're confused and frightened, Vexathor said dismissively. They probably hope to hide in Saturn's rings. It doesn't matter. We'll dig them out and drag them home in chains. The chase continued for 6 hours. The Valdrin fleet followed eagerly, like predators pursuing wounded prey. They mocked the humans on open channels, making sure the entire galaxy could hear their contempt. Run, little apes, one Valdrin captain broadcast. Run back to your caves where you belong. On the Indomitable, Volkov watched the Valdrin fleet enter the pre-planned kill zone. Saturn's rings surrounded them now. billions of ice particles stretching in magnificent bands around the giant planet. All units, Volkov said calmly. Activate Protocol Cerberus. Let's begin the lesson. Across the rings of Saturn, thousands of objects that had appeared to be ice chunks suddenly came online. Weapons platforms carefully disguised and positioned over months of preparation. Railguns, missile batteries, laser arrays, and kinetic bombardment systems. They had been waiting in silent hibernation, powered down and hidden. The Valdrin sensors had detected nothing unusual. Why would they? They were just ice chunks in Saturn's rings. The platforms activated simultaneously. Thousands of weapons opened fire at once. The Valdrin fleet had entered Saturn's rings in a tight pursuit formation. Perfect for intimidation, but terrible for defense. The first volley caught them completely by surprise. Railgun rounds, each traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, tore through Valdrin shields like paper. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving missiles, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Evasive maneuvers, Vexathor screamed as his ship shook from multiple impacts. Where are these weapons coming from? Everywhere, the sensor officer shouted back. The rings are full of hidden platforms. We're surrounded. Missile swarms erupted from concealed launchers. Not the slow, predictable missiles the Valdrin expected. These were human-designed weapons that moved in unpredictable patterns, coordinating with each other like a school of fish or a flock of birds. When Valdrin point defenses destroyed one, the others learned and adapted. Laser arrays carved through the darkness, finding weak points in Valdrin armor that human intelligence had spent 20 years identifying. Every species had weaknesses. Humanity had studied them all. In the first 30 minutes, 12 Valdrin ships were destroyed. 20 more were heavily damaged. The beautiful, intimidating formation fell apart into chaos. Regroup, Vexathor ordered. Pull back. We need to reassess. But pulling back meant exposing their engines, and the weapons platforms had been positioned with that in mind. More ships died as they turned to flee. The human fleet, which had appeared to be running in panic, suddenly reversed course. They moved through the rings with practiced ease, their smaller ships darting between the ice chunks that hindered the massive Valdrin vessels. Target their command ship, Volkov ordered. I want Vexathor to remember this day very clearly. The Indomitable led the attack personally. Human weapons might be considered primitive by Valdrin standards, but they were effective. More importantly, they were unexpected. The Valdrin had prepared for energy weapons and traditional missiles. They had not prepared for magnetically accelerated metal rods, for swarm tactics, for weapons platforms that could think and adapt. Vexathor's flagship shuddered under sustained fire. His bridge crew struggled to respond, but their training had been for intimidation and overwhelming force, not for actual combat against a determined, clever enemy. Distress signal to Valthorax. Vexathor ordered, his pride broken. Request reinforcements. Admiral Volkov's face appeared on every Valdrin ship's communication screen. She spoke clearly, making sure her words were recorded and transmitted across the gap. The news of the 7th Fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the concordant chambers on Axis Prime, species that had voted against humanity quietly smiled. Those who had supported the Valdrin looked uncomfortable. The Chitara representative Rixala sent a private message to Ambassador Chen Wei. Your people fight well. The Valdrin are mobilizing more fleets. Be careful. Chen Wei's response was simple. Thank you, friend. Tell others to stay clear of human space for the next few months. It's going to get dangerous. On Valthorax, the Valdrin High Council met in their war chamber. The room was ancient, its walls covered in holographic displays showing their empire's vast territories. For 10,000 years, these walls had displayed only victories. Now, for the first time in recorded history, they showed a defeat. High Commander Thexilor stood before the council, trying to maintain his dignity despite his failure. 3 of his 4 hands trembled slightly. The humans used tricks and deception, he reported. They hid weapons in Saturn's rings. They used tactics that violate every standard of civilized warfare. Civilized? Elder Morthex's voice was cold. They are primitives. They do not know civilization. That is why they must be crushed and taught properly. We are mobilizing 3 full battle fleets, another council member announced. The 2nd, 4th, and 9th. 412 ships total. We will also deploy the subjugation corps. The humans want war. We will give them annihilation. But one voice spoke differently. Council member Zethara was younger than most, only 3,000 years old. She had spent time studying other species and their histories. Elders, I urge caution, she said carefully. I have studied the humans extensively. They are dangerous in ways we do not understand. Their entire evolution has been shaped by conflict. They fought each other constantly, with weapons that grew more terrible with each generation. Even now they remember thousands of battles, thousands of wars. War is in their very nature, which is exactly why they must be controlled, Thexler snapped. They are rabid animals that need to be caged. Or, Zethara said quietly, they are warriors who have finally found an opponent worth fighting, and we just gave them motivation. The council ignored her warning. The 3 fleets departed Valthorax with great ceremony. 400 ships, enough firepower to conquer most civilizations in the known galaxy. The crews were confident. The 7th Fleet had been caught by surprise, ambushed by cowardly tactics. This time would be different. Fleet Marshal Kexthor commanded the combined armada from his massive flagship, the Eternal Dominance. He was one of the Valdran Empire's most celebrated commanders, though he had earned his reputation in subjugation campaigns against species that barely had spaceflight. We will not make the mistakes of the 7th Fleet, Kexthor announced to his officers. We will approach carefully. We will scan thoroughly, and we will crush any resistance with overwhelming force. In the Sol system, Admiral Volkov met with her command staff. President Okafor joined them via secure transmission from Earth. 400 ships, General Marcus Thompson said, studying the tactical displays. They're not playing around this time. Good, Volkov replied. Saturn was just the appetizer. Now they'll see what humans can really do. Director Liu Chen activated a holographic display. It showed the Sol system and the approaching Valdran fleets. They're advancing in a 3-pronged formation. Smart. Harder to ambush. They're also scanning intensively for hidden platforms. They won't find any where they're looking, Volkov said with a slight smile, because we're not hiding in the places they expect. Humans don't think like Valdran. That's their biggest mistake. They keep assuming we'll fight the way they would fight. What's the plan? President Okafor asked. We're going to do something no civilized species would do, Volkov answered. Something so crazy, so reckless that they won't believe we'd actually try it. 2 weeks later, the Valdran Armada entered the outer Sol system. They moved slowly and carefully, their sensors sweeping every piece of debris, every asteroid, every moon. No hidden platforms detected, the sensor officer reported. The asteroid belt is clear. Jupiter space is clear, another officer added. Saturn space is clear. Fleet Marshal Kexthor nodded with satisfaction. The humans learned from their mistake. They cannot hide their tricks from proper military scans. Continue the advance. We will establish a blockade around Earth and force their surrender. But something was wrong. The tactical officer frowned at his display. Marshal, where is their fleet? We should be detecting their ships by now. Perhaps they fled, Kexthor suggested. Perhaps they realized the futility of resistance. Or perhaps, his intelligence officer said nervously, they're planning something. The Valdran Second Fleet approached Mars. The 4th Fleet moved toward Earth's moon. The 9th Fleet positioned itself near Venus. They would surround the human homeworld and choke off any escape. Then everything happened at once. From behind Mars, the human fleet emerged. But they were not in defensive positions. They were accelerating at speeds that seemed impossible, pushing their engines far beyond what should have been safe limits. They're coming straight at us, the 2nd Fleet commander shouted. Weapons range in 30 seconds. All ships fire, Kexthor ordered. Destroy them before they reach us. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between the fleets. The Valdran fired with precision, their weapons tracking the approaching human ships with calculated accuracy. Several human vessels were hit. Some exploded. Others tumbled away, trailing atmosphere and debris, but the rest kept coming. And they were not slowing down. They're going to ram us, someone screamed, some did. 3 human ships, badly damaged and burning, crashed into Valdran vessels at tremendous speed. The impacts were catastrophic. Both ships in each collision were destroyed, but the Valdran ships were much larger. The loss hurt them more, but that was just the distraction. While the 2nd Fleet dealt with the suicide attack, the real assault came from an unexpected direction. From the surface of Mars itself, thousands of missiles launched simultaneously. Humanity had converted their entire Mars colony into a weapons platform. Underground silos, carefully hidden for months, now revealed themselves. The missiles were crude by Valdran standards. Simple chemical rockets with nuclear warheads. Primitive. But there were thousands of them. And the Second Fleet was focused on the ships attacking from space. The nuclear explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Valdran shields could stop a few. They could not stop hundreds. Ships died in flames, their hulls torn apart by forces that had once threatened to destroy humanity itself, now turned against their enemies. Near Earth's moon, the Fourth Fleet faced a different nightmare. Human Marines using small drop pods that were almost impossible to detect, launched toward the Valdran ships. It was insane. Space combat was conducted at long range with energy weapons and missiles. No one tried to board enemy ships during battle. No one except humans. Commander James Rodriguez led the first wave. His drop pod crashed through the hull of a Valdran cruiser, and his Marine squad poured into the breach wearing heavy combat armor. The Valdran crew was unprepared for close combat. They had weapons, but they had never trained for fighting inside their own ships. Their tactics assumed enemies would stay at a distance. Humans had no such assumption. They had practiced fighting in corridors in zero gravity, in hostile environments. They used weapons designed for close quarters. Shotguns, breaching charges, blades for when ammunition ran out. Secure the engineering section. Rodriguez ordered over the squad channel. Cut their power! The Marines moved through the Valdran ship like water through cracks, fast and unstoppable. They used the ship's own corridors against the defenders, turning every corner into a potential ambush point. Within 30 minutes, Rodriguez's squad had seized control of the cruiser's engineering bay. Within an hour, they had captured the bridge. The Valdran captain stared in horror at the armored humans who had taken his ship. How? The captain whispered. How did you even reach us? Rodriguez removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face and hard eyes. You Valdran fight wars from a distance, safe behind your shields and weapons. You forgot that sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. Near Venus, the Ninth Fleet detected the human fleet approaching from Earth. Finally, an engagement they understood. Ship to ship. Long range. Proper combat. They opened fire, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. The human ships scattered, moving in random patterns that made targeting difficult. The Valdran adjusted, their computers predicting movement and compensating. Then the human ships did something unexpected. They stopped firing back. Instead, they kept moving, dancing between the Valdran vessels, staying just out of effective range but close enough to force the Valdran to keep tracking them. What are they doing? The Ninth Fleet commander demanded. Are they trying to tire us out? The answer came from an unexpected direction, from Earth itself. Humanity had built something during their 20 years in the Concordat, something they had kept secret. A mass driver on the moon, capable of launching projectiles at relativistic speeds. It required enormous energy and careful tar. The captured Valdran ships hung in orbit around Earth like trophies. Humanity had boarded and seized 7 vessels intact, including a heavy cruiser commanded by Thexilor's nephew, Sub-Commander Rethix. The young Valdran officer sat in a human detention facility, still trying to understand how his supposedly superior civilization had been defeated by primitives. Commander James Rodriguez visited the detention area. He carried 2 containers of liquid, one filled with water for himself, the other with a nutrient solution compatible with Valdran biology. He sat down across from Rethix and slid the container toward the prisoner. You're probably thirsty, Rodriguez said simply. Rethix stared at the container suspiciously. Why do you care? Because treating prisoners well is what civilized people do, Rodriguez replied. Your uncle called us barely evolved apes, but we know the difference between soldiers following orders and the leaders who give bad orders. You are trying to manipulate me, Rethix said. Rodriguez shrugged. I'm trying to keep you alive and healthy because that's my job. What you do with kindness is up to you. The detention facility had become a strange place. The captured Valdran expected torture or execution. Instead, they received medical care, proper food, and even entertainment. Human guards treated them firmly but fairly. It was confusing. One guard, a young woman named Private Chen, brought Rethix a datapad. Thought you might want to read, she said in passable Valdran language. We loaded it with your literature and history files. Why are you learning our language? Rethix asked. Because understanding your enemy is important, Chen replied. Also, you're not really our enemy. Your leaders are. You're just soldiers like me. This kind of treatment was repeated across all the detention facilities. The Valdrin prisoners slowly realized that humans did not hate them personally. The humans were fighting the Valdrin Empire's arrogance, not the Valdrin people. Meanwhile, on Valthorax, the High Council faced a crisis unlike any in their history. 2 major defeats. Over 130 ships destroyed. 7 ships captured. Thousands of Valdrin warriors dead or prisoners. And worse, the other species in the Concordat were watching with very different eyes now. Council Elder Morthex paced the war chamber, all 4 of his fists clenched. This is impossible. Unacceptable. We are the Valdrin. We have ruled for 10,000 years, and now we have been defeated by a species less than 300 years old, Zethara said quietly. Perhaps we should consider why. They use tricks. Deception. Uncivilized tactics. Thexler protested. They use tactics that work, Zethara countered. While we have been so certain of our superiority, they have been studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this exact situation. What do you suggest? Another council member asked. That we surrender. Accept humiliation? I suggest we think, Zethara said. For the first time in millennia, we have met an opponent we cannot simply intimidate into submission. We can continue throwing fleets at them and losing ships and warriors, or we can try to understand what makes them so dangerous. But pride and anger won out over wisdom. The High Council made a decision that would define the next phase of the conflict. They would not send another fleet. They would send the Subjugation Corps. The Subjugation Corps was different from regular Valdrin forces. They specialized in ground warfare, in occupying and controlling populations. They had never been needed against spacefaring species before, because those species always surrendered before occupation became necessary. The plan was simple and brutal. A small fleet would deliver the Corps to one of humanity's colony worlds. Not Earth itself, which was too well defended. A smaller target. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, home to 50,000 human colonists. The Valdrin would take the colony, use the humans as hostages, and force Earth to surrender. It was a strategy that had worked against other species. It was also a terrible mistake. The Valdrin assault fleet arrived at Europa without warning. 3 ships, carrying 5,000 Subjugation Corps warriors. They expected easy victory against a civilian colony with minimal defenses. They were wrong. Every human colony had been preparing since the war began. Europa's governor, Maria Santos, had mobilized the entire population. The colony had mining equipment that could be weaponized. They had construction robots that could be reprogrammed. They had 50,000 civilians who knew their lives depended on resistance. The Valdrin landed and began their assault. Within the first hour, they controlled the main spaceport. Victory seemed certain. Then they entered the colony's tunnel systems. Europa's cities were mostly underground, protected from Jupiter's radiation. The tunnels were narrow, complex, and dark. Perfect terrain for defenders, terrible for attackers. The Subjugation Corps found themselves fighting in conditions they had never experienced. Human colonists ambushed them from side tunnels. Mining explosives collapsed passages, trapping entire squads. Construction robots programmed with combat routines created by human military advisors attacked with cutting torches and industrial clamps. This is not a civilian population. The Corps commander Vakthor screamed into his communicator. They fight like trained soldiers. They're humans. His second-in-command replied grimly. They are all trained soldiers. Their entire species grew up fighting. The Europa colonists used every advantage. They knew the tunnels. They could move through the colony's maintenance shafts and ventilation systems. They struck and retreated, never giving the Valdrin a clear target. Governor Santos coordinated the defense from a hidden command center. Her background was in civil engineering, not military command, but she had studied everything Earth had sent about asymmetric warfare. Team 7, collapse tunnel section 42, she ordered calmly. That will cut off the Valdrin advance into residential areas. Team 3, flank them through the water treatment passages. On Europa's surface, something else was happening. Earth's military had received the distress call and responded with terrifying speed. Admiral Volkov personally led a task force that appeared in Jupiter space within hours. But she did something unexpected. Instead of attacking the Valdrin ships immediately, she broadcast a message on all frequencies. Valdrin Assault Fleet, you have attacked a civilian colony. You have broken the most fundamental laws of civilized warfare. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." She paused, and her next words were cold enough to freeze hydrogen. "You will withdraw your forces from Europa immediately. If you do not, we will not take prisoners. We will not be merciful. We will show you what humans are capable of when you threaten our families." The Valdrin Fleet Commander Zethkor laughed. "You cannot frighten us with words. We have 5,000 warriors on the surface. If you attack our ships, they will execute the human hostages." "You don't understand," Volkov replied. "There are no hostages on Europa. There are 50,000 armed and very angry humans who are currently teaching your warriors a lesson about why attacking human colonies is a very bad idea." On Europa's surface, the battle had turned completely. The subjugation core was surrounded, cut off, and being systematically destroyed by colonists using mining equipment, improvised explosives, and raw determination. Commander Vakthor tried to organize a retreat, but there was nowhere to retreat to. Every tunnel was either collapsed or filled with humans who fought like demons. A young colonist, barely 18 years old, confronted a group of Valdrin warriors with nothing but a mining laser. "You came to our home," he said quietly. "You threatened our families. Big mistake." The Valdrin warrior raised his weapon, but 3 more colonists appeared from side tunnels, their own improvised weapons ready. The Valdrin looked around and realized they were surrounded. "We surrender," the warrior said, lowering his weapon. All around the colony, the same scene repeated. The subjugation corps, broken and defeated, surrendered to the civilians they had come to subjugate. In space, Volkov's fleet moved into attack position around the Valdrin ships. She broadcast again, and this time her message was transmitted across the entire galaxy. The Valdrin Empire sent warriors to attack human civilians, to take hostages, to use innocent people as bargaining chips. This is not warfare. This is terrorism. She let the word hang in space, knowing that every species in the Concordat was listening. The Valdrin have lost another battle, but more importantly, they have shown the galaxy their true nature. They speak of civilization and superiority, but when challenged, they attack civilians. They take hostages. They reveal themselves as bullies who only know how to fight the weak. Commander Zethkor knew he was beaten. His warriors were captured or dead. His ships were surrounded, and the entire galaxy was watching his humiliation. "We surrender," he said quietly. The Valdrin ships were seized intact. The surviving members of the subjugation corps were taken prisoner. Not a single human colonist had died, though many were injured. The Valdrin had lost nearly 3,000 warriors, killed by civilians using mining equipment and desperate courage. Back on Valthorax, the High Council watched the transmission in absolute silence. The disaster was complete. They had not only lost another battle, they had been defeated by civilians. Worse, they had revealed their willingness to attack non-combatants, something that even their allied species found disturbing. Council member Zethara finally spoke. "We have lost more than ships and warriors. We have lost respect. We have lost. 3 months had passed since the ceasefire. The Great Hall of Axis Prime Station was filled to capacity. Every species in the Galactic Concordat had sent representatives. Some came out of curiosity. Others came out of fear. All came to witness history. The seating arrangement had changed. The Valdrin delegation no longer occupied the position of dominance. They sat in a standard section, no larger than any other species. The change was symbolic but powerful. The mighty had been humbled. Ambassador Chenwei sat in the human delegation, but he was not alone this time. Admiral Volkov stood beside him, wearing her dress uniform with its new decorations. Commander Rodriguez represented the Marines. Governor Santos had come from Europa, her arm still in a medical brace from the battle. Across the hall, the Valdrin delegation looked diminished. High Commander Thexler sat with his skin the pale blue of shame. Council member Zethara sat beside him, the only member of their leadership who seemed to accept what had happened with something like understanding. The Chitara representative, Rixala, opened the proceedings. As one of the few species who had opposed the protectorate status from the beginning, she had been chosen to mediate. "We are gathered to address the conflict between the Valdrin Empire and humanity," Rixala said, her translated voice echoing through the chamber. "A conflict that has changed our Concordat forever." Murmurs spread through the hall. Everyone knew what she meant. The Valdrin had been the Concordate's strongest military power for millennia. Their defeat by humanity had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. The Valdrin Empire has requested to speak first, Rixala continued. High Commander Thexler will address the assembly. Thexler stood slowly. His movements lacked the arrogant confidence he had displayed 3 months ago. He looked older, diminished. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. I stand before you to offer a formal apology to humanity, he began. Each word seemed to pain him, but he continued. I called them barely evolved apes. I mocked their technology and their capabilities. I proposed they be reduced to protectorate status. I was wrong. The hall fell silent. No one had ever heard a Valdrin leader admit to being wrong. The humans fought with courage, intelligence, and determination. They used tactics we did not anticipate. They adapted to every challenge we presented. And when we attacked their civilians, those civilians proved stronger than our warriors. Thexelor's skin darkened slightly, showing emotion. We have learned a painful lesson. Age does not guarantee wisdom. Power does not guarantee victory. And arrogance guarantees defeat. He turned to face the human delegation directly. On behalf of the Valdrin Empire, I apologize for our contempt, our aggression, and our cruelty. We will abide by the terms of the ceasefire. We acknowledge that humanity's refusal of protectorate status was justified. We acknowledge that we underestimated them catastrophically. Thexler sat down, looking exhausted. The Valdrin delegation sat in silence, absorbing the humiliation of their leader's words. Rixala gestured to Chen Wei. Ambassador Chen, humanity may now respond. Chen Wei stood and all eyes turned to him. He had been silent through so much of this conflict, letting others speak. But now, at this critical moment, he would define humanity's response. High Commander Thexler, we accept your apology, Chen began. But I want to be clear about something. We did not seek this conflict. We came to the stars seeking friends, partners, and fellow travelers in the cosmic journey. We found some of that with species like the Chitara and the Delphines. He paused, looking around the chamber. But we also found something else. We found arrogance, contempt, a belief that because you were old, you were superior. That because you had power, you had the right to command us. Chen's voice grew harder. Humanity has a long history, even if it is short by galactic standards. We have fought countless wars. We have risen from ashes again and again. We have learned, adapted, and survived against impossible odds. Not because we are the strongest or the smartest, but because we refuse to give up. Because we refuse to bow. He looked directly at the Valdrin delegation. You wanted to discipline us, to teach us our place. Instead, you learned that humanity cannot be bullied, cannot be intimidated, cannot be broken. The hall remained silent. Every species was listening intently. But here is what many of you may not understand about humans. Chen continued, his voice softening. We do not hold grudges against those who learn from their mistakes. We do not seek revenge against those who acknowledge their errors. The Valdrin Empire attacked us and we defended ourselves. Now they have apologized and we accept that apology. He gestured to Admiral Volkov. Our military proved we could fight. Our colonies proved we could resist. Our people proved we could win. But now we want to prove something else. That we can forgive. That we can move forward. That we came to the stars seeking partnership. And that offer still stands. Admiral Volkov stepped forward. She looked every bit the warrior, but her voice was calm and measured. During the conflict, we captured several Valdrin ships and thousands of Valdrin warriors. We treated them with respect and dignity. We gave them medical care, proper food, and fair treatment. Why? She looked around the chamber. Because that is what civilized beings do. Because warriors who follow orders are not our enemies, even if we must fight them. Because hatred is easy, but understanding requires strength. Commander Rodriguez spoke next. I led the boarding action that captured Subcommander Rethix's ship. I have spent time talking with him and the other Valdrin prisoners. Do you know what I learned? That Valdrin warriors are brave, dedicated, and loyal to their people. Just like human warriors, he smiled slightly. The problem was never the Valdrin people. The problem was leaders who had forgotten what it means to face a real challenge, who had grown comfortable in their dominance. Who confused power with righteousness. Governor Santos stepped forward last. Her medical brace was clearly visible, a reminder of the battle for Europa. The Valdrin attacked my colony. They sent warriors to take hostages to threaten our families, and my people, civilians with mining equipment in desperation, defeated trained soldiers. She paused, letting that sink in. But do you know what happened after the surrender? We gave the wounded Valdrin medical care. We shared our food with the prisoners. Because that is what humans do. We fight fiercely when threatened, but we do not torture the defeated. We do not take pleasure in cruelty. Chen Wei spoke again, drawing all attention back to him. The Valdrin wanted to know humanity's place in the galaxy. Here is our answer. We are not servants. We are not subjects. We are equals. We will contribute to the Concordat as partners, not as inferiors. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. But we also understand that trust must be rebuilt. That fear must be addressed. Some of you are wondering if humanity will now seek to dominate as the Valdrin once did. Let me be absolutely clear. We will not. Humanity seeks partnership, Chen continued. We want to share knowledge, to learn from others, to contribute to the greater good. We want to explore the galaxy together with friends, but we will never again accept being treated as lesser beings, and we will defend ourselves and our allies against anyone who tries to subjugate us. The Delphine representative, speaking through bioluminescent patterns translated by computers, pulsed a question. What would humanity do if another species faced what you faced? If the strong tried to subjugate the weak? Chen Wei smiled. We would stand with the weak. Because humanity remembers what it's like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to be told we are not good enough. We will not let others suffer what we suffered. This statement sent ripples through the chamber. Several smaller species looked at the human delegation with new interest and hope. Rixala spoke again. The Concordat must now vote on humanity's status. The original proposal was protectorate status. Obviously, that is no longer appropriate. I propose full sovereign membership with military council representation. The vote was called. This time it was not even close. 43 species voted in favor. Only 4 abstained. All of them close Valdrin allies who were themselves reconsidering their relationships. None voted against. Humanity is recognized as a full sovereign member of the Galactic Concordat, Rixala announced, with all rights, responsibilities, and privileges that entails. But the session was not over. Something unexpected happened. Council member Zethara stood and requested permission to speak. On behalf of the Valdrin High Council, I wish to make an additional proposal, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. The Valdrin military has operated under the same tactical doctrines for thousands of years. These doctrines proved inadequate against an adaptive, creative enemy. We were defeated not by superior weapons but by superior thinking. She paused, and what she said next shocked everyone. The Valdrin Empire requests that humanity provide military advisors to help modernize our forces, not to make us more dangerous to others, but to make us more capable of defending the Concordat against external threats. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. The mighty Valdrin asking the humans they had mocked to teach them? Admiral Volkov looked at President Okafor, who was watching.